Good morning. My name's Zach. I'm honored to be here today with the family as we celebrate Patrick's life. Thank you for sticking with us through that last little bit. Way more people showed up than maybe we even anticipated, so thank you for being here. This full room shows us the impact of Patrick's life. I'm going to pray, and we're going to get the service started. God, we are in this room today, and God, we acknowledge that Patrick is gone way too soon. God, we acknowledge that there's pain with that and that there's questions with that. And God, I pray this morning that what we're able to do in this room is twofold. God, I pray that we're able to grieve. God, that we're able to get some tears out, to start some work in our own hearts to figure out what it means to move on with life and what that means about our memories with Patrick, the things that we're still working through. And God, I also pray today that we can celebrate this life that is full of incredible stories. God, plenty of stories to keep us laughing. I pray that this morning, as we both cry and laugh at the same time, that instead of letting those things be in conflict, that we would embrace them both. And God, we thank you for this beautiful family that Patrick leaves behind. And I pray as each one of them starts to figure out what it looks like to move forward, that you would be with them in a special way even today. We love you. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. We're going to start off from hearing from Deanna and Ken, and I want to invite them up to start. Hi.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Yes. My name is Deanna Jarose. For those of you who knew me from high school, junior high, elementary, or wherever we first met. And you know, that brought me back to some of my very first memories of Patrick. And when I say Patrick, I have to always say Sean in there because they were a duo. And we spent 5th, 6th grade. They would try to trick their teachers as to who was who. And whoever ended up sitting next to me, and I think it was Patrick, he ate my toothpaste out of my desk. And I had to brush my teeth, and there it was. And I look, and he's sitting there just eating it like it's candy. And I said, I'm not going to have any toothpaste left, Pat. Thank you so much. My word. You know, we were kind of plucked and sent to a new school. It was Hunters Glen Elementary, the Teddy Bears. And our colors were pink and purple. And I thought to myself, what is this going to be like? And I met some of my best friends there. And it was Patrick. It was Sean. And we stuck together. And Floyd. Oh, my God, did you go to Hunters Glen? Oh, yeah. It was, oh, my gosh. And then we went to Northeast to junior high. And you know, everything just continued. Patrick sat behind me in band. We were band geeks together. And we were just talking about this the other day of how he would constantly challenge Danny Reisbeck for first chair, and it really pissed him off. He's like, but I got there, and it would just make him mad and try harder. I'm like, yeah, that's what you do, right? So those moments of track in junior high and playing tricks on one another and laughing uncontrollably. I camped out at his family's house often. So often that I returned to town to visit, like in 2002, I think. And they had an open door policy my whole life growing up. And so I go back to their old house. And I walk in, and I said, they redecorated. They moved. And I felt a little awkward. I still didn't see anybody, but literally the door was open. So I went out front, and then I rang the doorbell, and I said, I have to apologize profusely. Do not kill me. I trespassed on your property. But that's just what it was. They were my parents, my brothers, my partners in crime. I was trying to be the responsible party and babysit after school. And they had this amazing trampoline in the backyard. So I called the boys and I said, "It's on." They came over lickety split, and we're all jumping on the back trampoline. And these two little girls, we kept popping them up, and you pop somebody up and jump them. They were flying. Well, all of a sudden, their mom comes home. And I look at Pat and Sean, and they're like, "We're out of here." I'm like, "Okay, bye, guys. Peace out." And then I got to hear from the parents, but they're always up for a journey. The ride home from school in high school, "D, sit in the back of the Subaru." Sure. Why not, right? Well, so we'd hit the dirt hills, and they pull it backwards going down a hill and say, "Hold on," and go reverse down the hills till I was ready to actually go home. And I'm like, "Really, guys? Does your parents know you do this?" We're still in one piece, but we loved it. Those were our adventures. As I was looking on the internet and looking at everyone's pictures and hearing stories about them and Patrick, I'm like, I don't have any pictures. I don't have a lot of those photos. I have one picture of one of my birthdays, and it was Pat, my friend Shauna Artzer, Jason Trimbeth, Michael Trimbeth, and myself. And I'm looking at that, and all my friends are leaving. And that bench is getting too wide. Too wide. But when it's our time, it's our time. I booked a flight to come out here from Colorado. I've been kind of a at-distance friend, and me and Patrick would spend hours on the phone, to the point where his mom would get on the phone, "How can you talk for 6 hours?" And I thought, it's easy. It really is. So Carol's on the phone listening, and periodically she gives her 2 cents. She's like, "All right, I get it. I'm hanging up now." And she would let us go and do our thing. But ultimately, I said, I'll get back out there. I'll make it back out to Colorado. I miss it. I miss my friends. I miss my family. I miss the moments that we have. And kind of this weird magical moment. I'm like, this is our 30-year reunion coming up, and it's on my birthday. So what a cool gift to get to see our friends and family at the same time. So I booked the flight. And I said, if I'm going, Patrick's going. And so I called Pat. I said, "Look, this is what's coming up. You got to go." He's like, "I don't want to go." I said, "You've got to go." And so evidently he's like, "Fine, let's do it." I sent him my flight arrangement and everything. And he had a different kind of reunion in mind. But he is home, that homecoming. He's there. And God, he lives in our hearts, in our minds, in our memories. There's so many memories. Like, I can't stop but just laugh and think about all the goodness. And, we would talk, and if there was something going on, and excuse my language, he's like, "D, fuck it." I'm like, "Okay, Pat, the way you put it, you fine, might as well." He's like, "Should I come take care of it? Do I need to come take care of it?" I'm all, "No, Pat, you don't have to come take care of it. I've got you. I know you've got me." I get it. He's like, "Come on, sweetheart. I've got it. I'll take care of it. Just name it." I'm like, "I know." But he was that for so many. I read that he was a work dad for some. He was that supporter, that confidant, that protector of so many. And he always said, "D, you have to check out my scars. I'm put together with machinery." And I'm like, "I bet you are." But he's always been a character and a love in my life. and so many others. And I am appreciative that to have him in my life and to have the family in my life. And we can't go another 20 years to see one another. So his reunion is here, and he's home. Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Ken Cooley, and see a lot of familiar faces in here, and grew up with a lot of you guys, and it's good to see you. Sorry it's under these circumstances. Pat had a zest and a love for people, and he would be happy that you guys are all here celebrating his life. Thanks to Flatirons Church and the Quinlans for the beautiful service, and Pat, his kids, and the Quinlans in general have a lot of history here, and couldn't think of a better place to celebrate him, so thanks. I was up pretty late last night. My mind was spinning a little bit. I'm not a very good public speaker. And I was thinking of stories that I could say in here without walking out of here and being struck down. Pat and I stirred up a lot of stuff. He was a great human being. I met Pat in junior high school. I went to Northeast Junior High for a short amount of time. And from there, we went to high school together. We weren't very close. We were more of acquaintances back then. And, we'd run into each other at parties and sporting events or whatnot. And, we were always cordial and cool with one another. We didn't really become close until after we graduated high school. We became close through mutual friends, through Justin, and just really hit it off and grew super close. He always jabbed at me for my mullet in junior high school and my parachute pants. So he always introduced me as this person, even in my adult life. So that was nice of him. We grew to become the greatest of friends and help each other through many growing pains. I helped Pat move his family out to Arizona and then back to Denver from Arizona. I was able to get to know his family, his beautiful kids, and fortunate enough to watch them grow from young kids to adults. Pat had a hand in the start of my business when I was unemployed as a construction builder. He suggested I meet with his parents. His parents were moving in down the street from me, and I was on unemployment, and he suggested I go give him an estimate for their basement finish. So I ended up doing multiple projects around the neighborhood and found my calling from that. And he was always just a good support system through that. And, he's been a fundamental part of me and my family's lives since. He grew really close to my kids and everybody in my family as well. Pat was always the life of the party, as you guys all probably know. And we have many, many fun memories together. He was not the best at always making the right decisions. However, always had a genuine smile on his face and many belly laughs that came along with it. Between the two of us, we had many belly laughs. I will never forget when he taught me how to levitate in Copper Mountain while there for the Warrior Dash. If you know, you know. this was his proud signature move for years to come. I will also never forget jumping his rental car behind my old property in Todd Creek and the mess of antifreeze we left behind on the asphalt when it was done. Shortly after that, it sounds like Dee had a similar story from growing up. You guys like to jump cars and drive through fields and all that fun stuff. Let's see. Shortly after that, I was gifted an '01 Dukes of Hazzard General Lee hat and christened with the nickname of Luke Duke. In all seriousness, those that knew him and were close with him knew what kind of loving, giving, and caring person he was. He loved people in general, especially kids. Pat always had a positive and good outlook on life. He didn't complain a lot about anything, really. He was happy as long as he had a cold beer in his hand. He taught me many things about being a better person and how to be a more patient person in my personal life, is what I took away from him. Pat loved his family and people around him in life, most especially his mom, Carol, his dad, Pat Sr., twin brother Sean, sister Shannon, and children Chelsea, Megan, Madison, and Patrick III. One thing I know about Pat is he would want everybody here to laugh and celebrate him and not be upset, and just to be happy with the memories they have in their minds, the good, funny memories that they have of him and the happiness and joy he brought to everybody. Until we meet again, rest in peace, my dear friend. Thank you.
If you know Pat, you know that he considered himself 1,000% Irish. So one of our songs today is in that vein. So let's enjoy it together.
Eyes are smiling. Sure, it's like a morning spring in the lilt of Irish laughter. You can hear the angels sing when Irish hearts are happy. All the world seems bright and gay, and when Irish eyes are smiling, sure they steal your heart away. When Irish hearts are happy, all the world seems bright and gay. And when Irish eyes are smiling, sure they'd steal your heart away.
All right, we're going to hear from Floyd and Frankie, so I want to invite Floyd and Frankie up now. Just Frankie. Sorry, just Frankie. Thanks, Frankie.
Good morning. Frankie Kerber. I want to thank everybody for being here to celebrate Pat and supporting the Quinlan family. It means so much to all of his family and his deep friends. I've known Pat for over 40 years. Our dads were police officers together, and that's how we met. You know, our dads worked a lot, and we would have barbecues and family functions together. And I was the oldest in my family, so Pat and Sean were like my older brothers, and I wanted to do everything they were doing. You know, they're 3 years older than me. They had all the cool friends, cool cars. All the girls were always over there. So they always looked out after me. And I thought I was the coolest kid because I'm in junior high and these guys would come pick me up. They're in high school, they're driving, and they would take me to these parties in high school. They'd get me into the R-rated movies because they knew somebody that worked at the movie theater. I mean, they were always there, and so they were always like brothers to me. I went to the Marines for a while, and I'd come home on leave, and Pat would be like, come on over, come have a beer. So I'd come over, have a beer with him, and at the time, he had 3 little babies and Chelsea. And he's like, hey, you mind if you watch the kids for a little bit? Me and Tammy are gonna go out on a date. And I'm like, all right. So here I am with 3 little babies and, you know, trying to put them to sleep. And but Pat always had a way of doing things because he's like, hey, you don't want kids right away. This is gonna be your birth control. So Pat, and it's hard, like, it's always hard to just say Pat because it's always Pat and Sean. They were always together, and I loved everything about them. Patrick, otherwise P to the Q, the only one I know that put a bar in his basement and called it Club Q. He was so spontaneous. And I was like, where does he think this stuff up? I don't know, you know? And I think I'm okay to say this now that everything Pat denied, he 100% did. Without a doubt. And everything he blamed Sean for, he did. There's a special memory. I've told a couple of the family about this. We were at a friend's house it was about this time of year. It was a barbecue, and everybody's having a good time, and our friend had this neighbor, and Pat's like, hey, did you see that motorcycle that's in that garage? And I go, no, I haven't. So he's talking to this guy that owns a motorcycle, and he's like, Frank, I'm gonna ride that motorcycle before this night's over with. And I'm like, well, let me go look at it. So the friend lets us into his garage and look at this motorcycle. It's a Harley Davidson. It's Electroride. It's white. And this motorcycle was pretty unique because as you got closer on the gas can, it said Westminster Police Department. So a few beers later, Pat talks this police officer to let him sit on it. And you know, Pat, he can't just be satisfied with that. It turned into, hey, can I put the helmet on? And so he gets the helmet on, he's got the mic right in his mouth, and then he goes, hey, let me start it. And so he starts it, and he goes, let me just take it down the street. So I'm looking at this guy going, you're crazy. You don't know Pat. And so he goes, okay, I'll let him ride it down the street. So as Pat's taking off, he goes, you trust this guy, right? And like a good friend, I'm like, Pat is the most reasonable, cautious person I've ever met in my life. So Pat takes off down the street, and right when he does that, he goes, man, I'm so glad I didn't tell him how to turn on the lights and siren. Well, guess who figured out how to turn on the lights and siren? So here comes Pat screaming up the street with the lights and siren on this Westminster PD traffic bike. And we're in Thornton. So He stops by and he's asking anybody if they have aviators because he needed some aviators. And nobody had any aviators. So the guy's like, all right, that's good. He goes, no, let me just take it up to the top of the street and I'll circle right back. And he goes, okay. And I looked at him and I said, oh, buddy, you don't know what you just did. So at the top of the street, and let me just remind you what Pat's wearing. He's got sandals, khaki shorts on, and a Hawaiian t-shirt on. And he drives this up to this top of the street, and there's the main, it's like a T street, so it's the main road, 100th Avenue, if you want to be exact. I think it was Vine, 100th and Vine. So Pat parks it, and he goes, I wonder if he stalled it out. And I go, I don't think he stalled it out. He turned the lights back on, and Pat figured out where the radar gun was. So he opens the saddlebag on the side of the motorcycle, and he's sitting at the top of the street with the radar, at the traffic that's coming towards him, and everybody's slowing down. So I could go on for hours with some of the stories I have with Pat. He was my best friend, like a brother to me. Pat gave me the greatest gift I could ever have, and it's all of my friends that I met through him, to become close with his kids and his family. One night, Pat was, come out with me, come on out. And I said, I got stuff going on the next day, I can't do it. And he begged me to come out. And I'm glad I went out because that night I met my wife. And if I didn't go out with him, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So I love my friend Pat. I love your family. I'll always be here for you guys. And I just want to leave. Pat would kill me if I said this because he goes, don't get emotional. He goes, speak from the heart. The last couple of weeks as I was kind of comprehending everything, I read a book and it talked about the 3 wise men that were out in the desert, and it was all dark. And they followed the star, and that star led them to Jesus. So I know that Pat was in some dark places for a little bit, but I know that he's with Jesus now. So I love you all. Thank you for being here. And I can't wait to talk over some more stories. And I'll tell you about the belt buckle later that I'm wearing. It's not appropriate right now. Thank you.
All right. If Irish eyes are smiling is one side of Pat, we have a song. I don't know this song. I'm a little scared about the song. This is a song called Give Heaven Some Hell, so let's listen to that together.
Can't believe that you got me in a suit and tie. I had to take a pull so I wouldn't cry. You got a line out the church door saying goodbye. Yeah, I believe them when they say you're in a better place. You had a wild side, but you had amazing grace. I know you're way off up in them clouds, but if you could still hear me right now, I hope you hit those ghost streets on 2 wheels. I hope your mansion in the sky's got a 10-acre field with some mud and some hubs you can lock in. Make some thunder, make 'em wonder how you got in. How'd you beer, how'd you clear from a man upstairs? Crank it loud, hold it down till I get there. And when I do, I hope you got some new stories to tell. Till then, give heaven some hell. I bet you're looking for a crew like we had. Bunch of noise making boys that like to live fast. Burning rubber in a parking lot. Man, I don't know if the other side's ready or not, but I hope you hit
Okay, that could have been much worse. We're all right. Hey, we got some of my favorite people on the planet. By the time I met these guys, Chelsea was already pretty mature. And I think a lot of that had to do with growing up with the crazy Quinlan triplets. This is Patrick's kids. It's Chelsea, Madison, Patrick, and Megan. So, guys, welcome up.
I don't really know how this thing works. Okay, wait. I think I need help, Zach. Sorry. Okay, there. Okay. Yep. Okay, I'm gonna start off, so just kind of bear with me, okay? So I'm just gonna read from my sheet just because I want to make sure that I get everything that I want to say. So, okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Megan. I am the oldest of the triplets. I just want to start off by thanking each and every one of you for being here today on the behalf of my family and I. I know that some of you have traveled to be here, and I know that my dad is happy that we are all here together to honor and celebrate him. On the morning of July 2nd, I went to check on my dad like I often did. And I found my dad and quickly knew that he had gone home to be with Jesus. God has been preparing me for the last few weeks through little sights and sounds that I was coming, that this day was coming, and that I would be the one to find him. Last year, when I found out that my dad was going to be moving across the street from me, as you can probably imagine, I was angry. But now I know that my dad was placed directly a few doors down from me for a reason. I grew to realize the comfort I found by going to check on my dad and be there for him on a daily basis. God, in his great mercy, chose me to be the one to care for my dad over the last year, and I can now say that that was truly a blessing in disguise. I was able to have the relationship with him that I sought for so many years. I was able to finally be at peace with the relationship that I had with my dad and was able to have forgiveness, compassion, and great love for him. That would not have been possible if he wouldn't have lived 3 doors down from me. Growing up, it was not easy. There were many times when my dad wasn't there like he was supposed to be, which made it really hard on all of us kids. But over the last year, with my dad being so close to me, I'm so thankful to have been there almost every day, even if it was to walk flip or run over to check on him and peek through the window without him knowing. My dad was very stubborn, as many of you know, but he was also very gentle, caring, and kind. My dad was a giver, and he made sure that everyone around him was taken care of before he would take care of himself. I wish my dad knew how loved he was. One of the most important things that my dad taught me was to be strong. He was in pain for so long, but never would tell anyone if you were to ask him. He never let anyone see him down, and he showed strength even in his weakest moments. I feel so grateful to have had as much time with my dad as I did. I miss him so much already, and I don't know how long it will take me to grieve this tremendous loss, but looking around this room today helps me realize the support that me and my family are so blessed to have. I am looking forward to hearing all the stories and the impact my dad had on all of you. I came across this poem the other day, and I would like to read it with you all. It's called, "He Only Takes the Best." God saw that he was getting tired. A cure was not to be. So he put his arms around him and whispered, "Come with me." With tearful eyes, we watched him suffer and saw him fade away. Although we loved him dearly, we could not make him stay. A golden heart stopped beating, hard-working hands to rest. God broke our hearts to prove to us he only takes the best. Thank you.
Good morning. First and foremost, thank you, everybody. From the bottom of our hearts, we really do appreciate you guys being here. Losing my dad is one of the most difficult things that I've ever and will have to go through. As I'm standing up here today, I realize how fortunate I was to be able to call him my dad. Caring, loving, hardworking, strong, reliable, humorous, goofy, kind, and respectful. These are all qualities that my dad not only held in the high esteem, but practiced every day during his time with us. He was a serious and disciplined man when it came to work. He took so much pride in what he did, and we all know it. Outside of work is a little bit different of a story, as we all know. He could never stress the opportunity and not get enough laughs with his friends and his loved ones. From playing cornhole at the end of the cul-de-sac until 3 a.m. with him, playing ball, or even in the garage drinking a few beers with his buddies and having good conversation. He valued the people around him, and that's what he really, really cared about, and that's what he really valued. He simply would give you everything he had, or even the shirt off of his back, without any questions asked. I think that's pretty fucking cool. Excuse my language. Sorry, it just slips out. As a child, I always looked forward to his friends coming over, like Uncle Ken, Uncle Justin, Uncle Floyd, and Uncle Frankie, and including Sean. They would have us over to the house, and they would tell stories about their youth. And every once in a while, usually after, quote-unquote, a few beers, they would forget I was with them and start to tell unedited versions of their stories. I would always learn some new information about my dad and his wild side from when he was younger, and for that I'm very grateful for all of you guys. Now I understand when people say you're just like your dad. I really do. For a while I didn't know whether I should take that with a grain of salt or if I should take that as a compliment. But looking back at the memories of him and I, knowing that how many lives he impacted, it takes a true man to be him. I see traits in myself that I see in him, and for that I wouldn't trade that for the world. So when people say you're just like your dad, you're damn right I'm just like my dad. Although my dad have maybe never said it out loud, I know from the bottom of my heart that he was so proud and truly proud of his kids, all of us, and how we've grown up. He will always be in my heart because in there he's very much alive. I love you, Dad. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I appreciate everyone coming out here today. I want to start off and thank everyone that took time to come and support me and my family. There are a few people I want to mention before I get started. Nana and Papa. I want to thank you guys for doing the best you can to help my dad with all of his struggles. You truly did the best and everything you could to help him be the best dad and parents for us. He loved you both so, so much. Chelsea, I want to thank you as well. You stepped up as our older sister and helped raise us when our relationships weren't the best with our dad. Uncle Sean, I want to thank you for being there for my dad 24/7. You were his backbone and flaming twin brother. He loved you so much. Megan, I want to thank you. I know when you first found out Daddy was moving right next door to you, you weren't too thrilled, but I promise it was a blessing in disguise. You all take care of him and were always there when he needed something. I know it wasn't easy, but it meant a lot for all of us to have you do that for him. As some of you may not know, growing up wasn't easy. There were lots of battles and hardships because of his drinking. There was a time in my life I was always angry at my dad for his drinking. I couldn't quite understand the concept of it until finally I became a young adult. I understood it was an illness, but he was still my daddy, so no matter what, I always loved him and he always loved me. He loved listening to me sing when I was little, dance around for hours and hours. I loved sitting by his side when he took me fishing. That was one thing he loved to do when we were little, even if that meant waiting hours and hours to catch just one fish. About 2 years ago, I finally gained the relationship back with him that I was missing, even though he always loved me so, so much. He truly was the best to me. He had the best sense of humor and was always there when I needed him. One of the best times I had with him was last year when he took me to the Broncos game. We just kept laughing, taking pictures, and obviously he was making his jokes 24/7, which I loved. It was truly a special day for me and him. Even when he started getting sick, he didn't want anyone knowing he was in pain. I would always ask him, "Daddy, are you okay?" And every single time he would say, "I'm always good, baby, I love you." That was one thing about him. He always kept a smile on his face for everyone and his kids. He taught me how to be strong when you felt your weakest. He was strong not only for us, but for everyone around him. He was giving towards others and loved taking care of people first, no matter what the circumstances were. If we were happy, he was happy. For the last couple of months, I would come down from Breckenridge to hang out with my dad. I am so thankful for Ken introducing Flip to my dad. You gave him something so special and something to love more than he ever could. Flip was his best friend. He needed that dog more than you could ever imagine. Flip gave my dad happiness, and like my dad said, it was his chick magnet. We would always watch movies, even if it was meant we were watching Pitch Perfect over and over and over again. We all know how much he loved Fat Amy. I knew he loved that movies and others we constantly watched together. I loved coming over, even if it was just to nap on his couch and sit as close as I could to him. I loved how he loved me, and I will continue to love, and I know he will continue to love me every single day. I will be strong for my dad because he was strong for everyone else. I will be giving towards people because that's what he did. And I will take care of others even if I can't because that's what my dad did. I will forever love you, Dad. You always called me Daddy's little angel, but now you are my angel in heaven. I know you will be watching over me, and I will continue to look for a sign from you every single day and every chance I get. I know you're so proud of me. I know you're flying free and not in any pain anymore, but I truly and dearly miss you so much. I promise I will never stop loving you. Daddy's little girl forever and always.
Good morning. I'm a little taller, sorry. First and foremost, I just want to thank God for allowing each and every one of you to be here today. Just like my siblings have said, have said, it truly means a lot to know each and every one of you here today cared, knew, or are related to my father. We knew some of you have traveled a long way to be here and are very grateful for that. For those of you who didn't get the chance to meet my dad and are here for us support kids, thank you. It truly takes a village, and we will need more support from each and every one of you now more than ever. The biggest thing I learned from my dad is he always taught me to be the strongest in the room and make sure everyone knew that he was fearless. He never judged me and helped me mold me into the strong woman I am today. Without his strength, I wouldn't have been able to make it through these last 16 days. As the oldest, planning a funeral has a lot of responsibilities. If you've known us from the beginning, you know it hasn't always been easy, and we haven't always had the best relationship with our dad. But the last few years, we've really gained that back, and I'm entirely grateful for that. He really had a struggle with a disease, anxiety, and depression, but you would never have guessed that the anxiety part or depression, would you? He was the happiest in the room, but unfortunately his demons were too strong, and now we have a pain-free angel watching over us every day. His smile lit up a room, his laugh was infectious, and he was always the life of the party. You were the strongest, toughest, and most stubborn man I knew. When Ty and I were newly dating, we were having a family barbecue in the backyard one night. To prove that my dad was the strongest man in my life, he had my brother go get his paintball gun from upstairs. Can you tell where I'm going with this story? My dad insisted Ty shoot him point blank in the chest with a paintball gun. Ty kept looking at me back and forth, asking if he should do it, and I said, absolutely. He shot my dad once right in the chest, and instead of screaming out in pain, it only amped him up more, and yelled to keep going and give him more. I'll save you the profanity he was shouting. Another one of my favorite memories is from my soccer days. About 12 years ago, I participated in a fundraiser to raise money, and we played 24 hours of soccer. We had a game at about 1:15 in the morning, and I wasn't expecting anyone to be there cheering me on, but sure enough, right on time, in walks Trish, Floyd, and my mom after they've had a few beers. All night, they cheered as loud as they could. I will always miss those days. The hardest part of my week now is driving every morning to work, not hearing his voice saying, "Good morning, sweetie," as I drive to work. But I have countless voicemails saved that are very hard to listen to right now, but I will always cherish to still be able to hear his voice. I'd like to read a verse from a piece of scripture. Isaiah 57, verse 1 and 2 says, "The righteous perish, and no one ponders in his heart. Loyal men are taken away, and no one understands that the righteous are taken away to be spared from evil. Those who walk uprightly enter in peace. They find rest as they lie in death." As most of you know, my dad was the most loyal man I know, as well as the most giving. Whether you wanted the help or not, he was always there. In early May, Ty and I moved into a new place. My dad was such a big part of that move. He wanted to help more than his body would physically allow, but his mind was still young, and he would never let his pride down. All he wanted to do was help Ty put the last screw into our TV bracket. Sometimes I joked that my dad loved Ty more than me, but that wasn't true. But the bond that they shared is something I will always cherish and be grateful for. My dad loves sports and always loved cheering on the Broncos, watching NASCARs on Sunday, and most recently spent most of his times sports betting over at our house, watching the Denver Nuggets take home the championship. His favorite thing to do was ask us to watch Pitch Perfect or blast music on my Bose surround system with Ty, knowing it would push my buttons. He loved messing with me. I'll miss his laughter the most. As hard as this week has been, reading through all of the stories and memories you all have shared have filled my eyes with tears of joy. Something I have struggled with and keep asking myself, though, since July 2nd is, why does it take death to bring community together? I've been thinking about that a lot recently. At times it makes me very angry, but then I remember life is about moments in time and all the great moments we've all shared together. I just want to take a moment and take this in with all of you. I love you. In the weeks and months coming, please be bugging and reaching out to my siblings as now when the quietness gets the loudest in our heads. The stories you all continue to share with my family and I are what has been keeping us all going this week. Throughout this process, I have realized just how many hearts he really has touched over the years, and this week has shown me what hurts about love, that my time was cut short with you, and I have to live a life without you. For me, 27 years will never be enough. If you or anyone you know is struggling with mental health and just need someone to talk to, please, please call or text 988. This is the suicide hotline number, and somebody will be on call 24/7. They simply don't make them like him anymore. I love you forever. I'll miss you always. Is there ever really a last goodbye? Thank you.
Guys, if you don't know the Quinlan kids, these are fantastic human beings, and you got to see that a little bit. I love them. Since you guys were probably 11, you're probably 15, just wonderful humans the whole way through. I love you guys, and you're strong, and you're more than capable. I keep wanting to call you kids, but you're not, and your dad would be very proud of what you just did up here. Yeah. Anyway, if that wasn't hard enough, Carol and Patrick, I want to welcome you to the stage.
I'm going to repeat a few of these things that my grandchildren have said and his friends. And first of all, I would like to thank my grandchildren for honoring us. That would make your dad very proud. Even though your dad was a mess sometimes, he always honored us. Pat was a deeply loving son and brother, much loved by his grandparents, aunts and uncles, nieces and nephews, and a multitude of cousins. He was a loyal friend, loved his children above all, and he had a deeply personal relationship with his God all his life. When I was pregnant with our second child, we were hoping for a boy and planned to name him Sean. However, his dad's Aunt Catherine informed me there had always been a Patrick in the Quinlan family. When he was born, the doctor announced that I had a little boy and asked his name. I, mindful of my duty, said Patrick. Because they weren't routinely using ultrasounds 48 years ago, we didn't know there was a huge surprise waiting. The doctor said push, and out popped another baby. The saga began. For a time, there were 4 Patricks alive in the Quinlan family. Grandpa Patrick Richard, Daddy Patrick Michael, little Patrick Daniel, and grandson Patrick Michael. And even though my side of the family is German, my son Patrick claimed to be 100% Irish. A typical St. Patrick's Day. When Pat was born, the right side of his head was caved in so that he couldn't open his eye. It seems that Sean had been sitting on top of him the last few months, and his face was pressed against my spine. Sean wouldn't get many more chances to dominate Pat in their lifetime. I have frequently attributed Pat's eccentric personality to the seizures he began having when he was 4 months old. He was a happy child. He slept 6 hours when I brought him home from the hospital, unlike his brother, who would wake me up every hour. As you can imagine, I was sleep deprived until the boys were in junior high. And then after that, I was always afraid to hear the phone ring in the middle of the night. Son Pat grew into an active toddler and soon became a handful. Even then, Sean followed him everywhere. By the time he was 2, Pat had pulled most of the hair from the top of Sean's head. Instead of spanking him, I made him sit still for 15 minutes, which was the worst kind of torture. He'd say, "Mama, please spank me so I can go outside and play." As many of you know, he was not always diplomatic. And you never knew when something rude, crude, or insensitive would pop out of his mouth. It began as soon as he could talk. In the beginning, he and Sean shared their own language, and their sister Shannon, at age 3, was their interpreter. As his language skills improved, I was always on guard, ready to cover his mouth before he offended anybody. He did eventually learn to hold his tongue in company, but when he was surrounded by his friends, you never knew what would pop out of his mouth. He loved being the center of attention and created drama whenever and wherever he could. Growing up, he loved participating in sports, riding his bike, and skateboarding. Unfortunately, he was fearless. You seldom saw him without a fresh scar or a broken bone. He loved hanging with his many friends and fishing. He was close to many of my cousins' children and also made deep bonds with his first cousins. Pat had an above-average work ethic. He excelled in his profession and was proud of his accomplishments in the housing industry. He was well known by his colleagues in the apartment association and among the many companies in which he worked at one time or the other. He was a loyal son all his life. He adored his children and looked forward to their visits. As his children grew up, they became friends on a personal level. He enjoyed their company and that of their significant others. He'd always said he'd never have a small dog. But about 6 months ago, he adopted a tiny Boston Terrier to his life. Flip was a loyal friend and kept close by his side right to the end. You can't fully know another person, even your own child, except, of course, his identical twin, who knew him from the moment of conception. Sean, I want to acknowledge you for your unfailing, steadfast devotion to your brother. You were there for him in a way that no one else could be. Our son's passing has left a hole in our family, but now he lives in our hearts and will forever reside in our memories. There are reminders of him everywhere. We know he's at peace. He isn't hurting now. His legs are working fine. And we know he's dancing with the angels. Thank you guys so much for coming.
Well, I'm not much of a public speaker, so I wrote something that Pat and I, we shared history books and sayings of Ireland. And so between the two of us, we pretty much was up on what was happening in our eyes, maybe not others. So anyway, one of the books I had given him, I got it back after his death, and he had underlined this saying. It said, "Carve your names on hearts, not on tombstones. A legacy is etched into the minds of others in the stories they share about you." And that was Irish saying by Shannon Alder. And Pat, he was 100% Irish. And
Whatever.
So very strong family ties, and will always be there for family and friends. And boy, I tell you, his close friends have just come out of the woodwork and stayed by us, stayed at our house, and it's just amazing. And couldn't have asked for a nicer son or a better son, but fortunately, I was blessed with two of them. And my heart goes out to everybody in peace and love, because it's so short if you don't have that in your life. Thank you.
Okay. Hey, I don't work here anymore, so I can get away with a lot. One of the things is I'm only going to talk for a couple of minutes, and what I want to share I think is really important for who Pat is going forward in eternal life. But before that, I mentioned at the top, we probably put out 35, 40 extra chairs. And if you haven't had a chance and you're kind of towards the front, would you just look around at this room real quick? It's overwhelming. Sean, one of the first things Sean said to me a couple weeks ago when we met was that Pat didn't want a funeral, right? You said you broke your promise to him. That's why we're here today. And I'm glad you did, right? Because in my experience, I've been doing this a long time, people don't want funerals for a couple of reasons. Most likely it's because they, A, didn't think anybody would come, right? Well, we know that's not true. We can see that here. Second one is usually that they're afraid of what people are going to say, right? Well, we've heard some good stuff today. Life is complicated and people are complicated. I love what Chelsea just said. Mental health is something that matters more and more in our world and the world that we live in right now. Maybe we're just discovering that it always did. But for people that are struggling and start to think nobody cares, or you're alone, or maybe the easier path out would be that, look around this room and realize that each one of us has a support system that looks very similar to this. We have people holding stories for years that love us, right? People who want to be there ultimately at the end of whatever that looks like to hold those stories and those memories together. You matter. And if that only matters or it affects one person in this room, I think Pat would be really happy to hear that. So I like I said, my name is Zach. I knew the kids mostly through middle school for these three. It was a wild time. And Pat and I maybe didn't have, I don't know, I'd say Sean, I call you my friend. I don't think Pat would have called me his friend for a long time. The first time I talked to Pat, I had to call about something kind of difficult, and I asked for Patrick. And he said, Patrick doesn't live here. Patrick's my kid, he's not home. And I was like, oh my gosh, I thought his name was Patrick too, right? And he goes, my name's Pat. And he's like, you can call me Pat, all right? And so from that point forward, I try to remember to always call him Pat. I hadn't seen him for years. And I was out, and I used to work here, and I was standing out in that big lobby out there. I see Pat coming up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Pat Quinlan. This is crazy. Have like a nice 5-minute conversation with him. I'm like, he was so cool. Man, Pat was so cool to me. Maybe we're friends. And like 5 minutes later, someone's like, that was actually Sean. So you guys still tricking people all these years later. But Pat and I had some good talks too, mostly about his kids. He loved his kids so much. And even through the hardest times, and the kids talked about the hard times, Pat loved them like you wouldn't believe. And he wanted to support them however he could, even when it was tough. So today, these stories that make us laugh and they make us cry, we are here because we're grieving, and Pat left way too early. So I just want to say a couple of things about when you hear that Pat knew Jesus, what that really means in real life. Because there's a lot of religious talk and religious people that make this hard to talk about. They ruin it for a lot of us. But I believe this. I believe that Jesus is close with each one of us here today, whether we believe in him or not. And I believe that he is in our hurt, and he's in our pain, and he's going to hold us through it, right? You guys are experiencing that in real time. And then there's joy that comes from those good times, those things, those stories that make us laugh and make us cry. These experiences are even greater because of that closeness of Jesus. So today, I want to talk about what it looks like when you come to the spots in your life that Patrick was in, that Pat was in, where these last 3 years that have been collectively difficult for every single person in the world were really hard on Pat. In the midst of these trying times, he had to turn and discover and lean on what he really believed about Jesus. And I keep reading this all week long. It just really reminds me of Pat in those moments. Jesus is talking to his disciples, his best friends, and he says this. He says, come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. And he means real rest. He means you can sit down. He doesn't mean you can keep more rules, right? He means you can actually take some rest. He says, take my yoke, which means my ways upon you. Learn from me, for I'm gentle and humble in heart. And you will find rest for your souls. For my ways are easy. My ways are light. And Jesus teaches us that no matter where we are, no matter what we've been through, those fears that Pat had that maybe people wouldn't show up or maybe they wouldn't say nice things, Jesus tells us in this simple sentence to his followers that when we do attach our life to him, when we do follow after the real Jesus and not just some, packaged religious program, but the real Jesus, we get the opportunity to find real rest. The kind that changes everything. The kind that takes us from our worst moments and helps us make them into some of our best moments. The kind that helps us take our history and our bad stories and redeem them for the last couple of years that he had, even with you kids. So in all these challenges and difficult days that Pat faced, I believe he found solace in the space, that the relief and the experience that just having Jesus with him gave him. He was able to live with joy in the moments where he was even still in pain. Moments with that dog that he loved so much, Pitch Perfect. I'm guessing Pitch Perfect too. I don't know, right? If you're wondering who likes Nickelback, it's Pat. These moments where he got to see real rest and real joy and experience something that only Jesus could give him. So I want to challenge us with this. I want to challenge us to find our own light moments, burden-free moments. Moments where we're not thinking about what we could have done or we should have done, but moments where we think about what we can do. Moments where we're thinking about what it will look like one day, right? To hopefully be old and surrounded by people that love us the most that say goodbye to us, so that we're not in rooms like this over and over again. But I want to remember Pat today, a friend to so many. We got to hear some great stories there. A family, right? And like all of us, an imperfect but loved man. And a man that's in all that imperfectness, he rests in wholeness today. Not because he did anything right, and he wasn't under any threat because he did anything wrong, but instead because he believed in a Jesus that says anyone can have that wholeness. I just have one more verse. It's one of my favorites. It's the writer says this. He says, "The God of all grace, who called you, Pat, to eternal glory in Christ. After you've suffered a little while, Jesus himself will restore you and make you strong, firm, and steadfast." This is the promise for every believer in Jesus, no matter what you've done, no matter what you believe, no matter where you've been, that you get to be restored by Jesus himself. That you get to have that physical, emotional, and spiritual pain fixed. That you get to have Jesus, the restorer, Jesus, the Savior, with you. That we get to be the perfect version of ourselves that he intended from the start. I believe that Pat lives in that promise today for eternity. And again, it's not because he believed the right things or did the right things. It's because he followed the right Jesus. He gave it all to him, and he asked him to deliver him. So I want to pray. We have, double check to make sure I don't mess this up, but I think we have a slideshow following me. We do. So I'm going to pray, and they're going to watch the slideshow, the memories of Pat's life, right? We're left with pictures and videos at the end of all of our lives. And these are the good ones that remind his family of him. So close your eyes with me, would you? I want you to picture Patrick from that picture up on the screen now, wearing that shamrock hat, spending time with that dog that he loves so much, spinning that Nickelback record one more time, enjoying Fat Amy, right? Patrick is with Jesus. I believe that. He's resting. He's restored. He's whole. The ledger's wiped clean. There might not have even been one to start with. Jesus is that good. Pat is at peace with Jesus. And God, we thank you today. In the difficult times and the good times, and the stories that are great and funny and will make us laugh the rest of today, God, the ones that we have to wait to tell until we're sure that we're safe. God, in the moments that are going to make us cry. Like Carol just said, in that hole that's left in this family. God, in the identity that each person who loves Pat has to reshape. God, we pray that you would continue to show up in ways that we can't explain. That you would give comfort, you would give peace. God, ultimately that you give wholeness to this family who needs it so badly. And God, to those of us in the room who struggle sometimes to believe that we're loved, that struggle sometimes to believe that it can get better, that struggle sometimes to think what the next step or the next move might be, I pray today that in Pat's memory, we'd ask for help, that we'd seek out people, that we'd seek out the right doctors, we'd seek out, God, even you, that today might be the start of something that changes multiple lives, that Pat would leave that as ultimately the legacy along with these incredible kids that he raised. We love you. We thank you for Pat, and we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
try your best but you don't succeed, when you get what you want but not what you need, when you feel so tired but you can't sleep, stuck in reverse, and the tears come streaming down your face, when you lose something you can't replace, when you love someone but it goes to waste, could it be worse? Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you. And high up above or down below, when you're too in love to let it go, but if you never try you'll never know just what you were. Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you. Tears stream down your face when you lose something you cannot replace. Tears stream down your face, tears stream down your face. I promise you I will learn from your mistakes. Tears stream down your face, lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you. It was 1989, my thoughts were short, my hair was long, caught somewhere between a boy and man. She was 17 and she was far from in between. It was some thinking about tomorrow, singing Sweet Home Alabama all summer long. Singing Sweet Home Alabama all summer long. Catching walleye from the dock, watching the waves roll off the rocks. She'll forever hold a spot inside my soul. We'd blister in the sun, we couldn't wait for night to come to hit that sand and play some rock and roll. While we were trying different things, and we were smoking funny things, making love out by the lake to our favorite song. Sipping whiskey out the bottle, not thinking about tomorrow, singing Sweet Home Alabama all summer long. Singing Sweet Home Alabama all summer long. Now nothing seems as strange as when the leaves begin to change. Oh, how we thought those days would never end. Sometimes I hear that song and I'll start to sing along and think, man, I'd love to see that girl again. Man, I like to see that girl again. And we were trying different things, and we were smoking funny things, making love out by the lake to our favorite songs. Sipping whiskey out the bottle, not thinking about tomorrow, singing Sweet Home Alabama all summer long. Singing Sweet Home Alabama all summer long. Singing Sweet Home Alabama all summer long. My best friend gave me the best advice. He said each day's a gift and not a given right. Leave no stone unturned, leave your fears behind, and try to take the path less traveled by. That first step you take is the longest ride. If today was your last day and tomorrow was too late, could you say goodbye yesterday? Would you live each moment like your last? Leave old pictures in the past. Donate every dime you had. If today was your last day, against the grain should be a way of life. What's worth the prize is always worth the fight. Every second counts, 'cause there's no second try. So live like you've never lived it twice. Don't take the free ride in your own life. If today was your last day and tomorrow was too late, could you say goodbye to yesterday? Would you live each moment like your last? Leave old pictures in the past. Donate every dime you had. And what you call on friends you never see, reminisce on memories. Would you forgive your enemies? And would you find that one you're dreaming of? Swear up and down you gotta love. That's true Won't you live each moment like your last? Leave old pictures in the past. Donate every dime you had. And what you call those friends you never see? Reminisce on memories. Would you forgive your enemies? And would you find that one you dreamed of? Swear up and down to God above that you finally fall in love. If today was your last day.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't know, good girl. Good girl. Give me here. Dude. She's scared. You ain't scared. All right, here we go. Go time. It's go time, dude. You want me to write this shit or what? Yeah, I think I'm gonna write it. Dude. Get on it right now. Dude. Dude, you don't need to closer anymore, dude. Fuck. I mean, go now, go.
All right, that's a fantastic way for us to go out. I want to say thank you so much to everybody for being here today with the family. Couple things at the end. There is a guest book out there in this first lobby. They'd love to have you fill that out. And also, there's memory cards if you want to leave a funny story or anything that you'd like to leave with the family. They're going to have a receiving line. Some of the family will be in the second lobby through these doors for a receiving line if anybody wants to say a word and greet them on the way through. There's coffee and donuts out there for all of us as well. Everybody's invited to that. We're going to have one last song. During that, whenever you guys are ready, I'll walk you out to get in place. And then once the family has gone, everybody else is welcome to be dismissed on your own time after that. Okay? I'm going to pray one last time. It's a lot of prayer. God, we thank you for Pat's life. Cut short. God, we have years of memories that could have been made, and we acknowledge that and recognize that today. But God, I pray as we leave this room that we would take the ones that we do have, and we let them be extra special in the places where they're healing. And God, as we continue to move through what it looks like to let you be in the middle of the pain and the hurt and the sorrow that is carried in a moment like this, we pray that you would just be close. And Pat was yours from the start. You lent him to this world. We don't understand, God, sometimes when people go, but we do know that he's yours and he's with you now. We love you, and again, we're thankful for everything that we continue to learn through the life of Pat. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you.
It's like the bottom of the ninth, and I'm never gonna win this. Life hasn't turned out quite the way I want it to be. Tell me what you want. I want a brand new house on an episode of Cribs, and a bathroom I can play baseball in, and a king-size tub big enough for 10 plus me. For what you need. I'll need a credit card that's got no limit, and a big black jet with a bedroom in it. Gonna join the Mile High Club at 37,000 feet. Been done. I want a new tour bus full of old guitars. Mine star on Hollywood Boulevard. Somewhere between Cher and James Dean is fine for me. So how you gonna do it? I'm gonna trade this life for fortune and fame. I'd even cut my hair and change my name. Cause we all just wanna be big rock stars and live in hilltop bosses driving 15 cars. The girls come easy and the drugs come cheap. Well, I'll stay skinny cause we just won't eat. And we'll hang out in the coolest bars in the VIP bills. Hire 8 bodyguards that love to beat up assholes. Sign a couple autographs so I can eat my meals for free. I'm gonna dress my ass with the latest fashion. Get a front door key to the Playboy mansion. Gonna date a centerfold that loves to blow my money for me. So how you gonna do it? I'm gonna trade this life for fortune and fame. I'd even cut my hair and change my name. Cause we all just wanna be big rock stars and live in hilltop bosses driving 15 cars. The girls come easy and the drugs come cheap. Well, I'll stay skinny cause we just won't eat. And we'll hang out in the coolest bars and the VIP with the movie stars. Every good gold digger's gonna wind up there. Every playboy bunny with the bleached blonde hair. And we'll hide out in the private rooms with the latest dictionary of today's zoo. They'll get you anything with that evil smile. Everybody's got a drug dealer on speed dial. Well, hey, I wanna be a rock star. I'm gonna sing those songs that offend the senses. Gonna pop my pills from a Pez dispenser. Get washed up singers writing all my songs. Lip sync 'em every night so I don't get 'em wrong. Well, we all just wanna be big rock stars and live in hilltop houses driving 15 cars. The girls come easy and the drugs come cheap. We'll all stay skinny cause we just won't eat.